Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of Hey, Did You See This One? It's still Caylen's birthday nightmare month, and we're going to be talking about a very special movie that's near and dear to his heart. Last week was the fucking train
Stunted
wreck.
Comedies.
Right, last week was a train wreck of a show. However, after watching Benny and Joon this week, I do see a trend starting, and it's playful dunce caps. And I mean dunce caps in the nicest way possible, because last week the stone-faced killer, Buster Keaton, was quite endearing. And this week's very special character, Johnny Depp, playing the role of Sam, not Benny. This whole week I thought he was going to be the titular Benny.
Right.
He does play a delightful tramp, a scamp, and somewhat of a weirdo, and he's perfect for the titular Joon. And Benny, the brother of Joon, is going to learn some lessons along the way. And we get to see a young Julianne Moore and Aichi Bala. That's all I'll have to say. How are you guys doing this week?
I'm sober.
I'm good.
You're sober this week, Caylen?
Yeah.
I was looking forward to this episode, as I feel last week kind of went off the rails.
I was in character. I'm pretty sure I mentioned that Buster Keaton was an alcoholic. And I'm sad to say I have a problem.
Listen, it was your birthday. It's forgivable. We'll never look back. That's what should be the motto of this. Except for when we're talking about movies that came out in 1993. Then we'll look back upon them. Like today, for example.
I don't think I mentioned, though, I just got to say this one thing from the general. If we're going to count the title cards as them talking, like when they talk and it shows them talking, the general was said at 17 minutes and 25 seconds.
Awesome, I missed that.
I mean, I read it aloud, so technically it was spoken aloud for the movie, right? When you're reading the title cards aloud.
You read the title card?
To it with rap music.
Yeah, it's the only way I can read properly, or else it all gets jumbled in my brain.
You watched it with rap music? Did you have like a version on YouTube that didn't have the scores? That was just like
it's the hip hop score to the general. Yeah.
I have the copy, and then I just had my TV on mute and had my little speaker thing playing music or whatever.
It's just an
it's funny
instrumental
when things
of
work out by
Mask
accident.
For
So I walked 5,000 miles to get to this podcast, getting through this episode, this movie. I just wanted to bring that up because I do love that the movie started with that. And I pretty much just gave you guys a little bit of a synopsis of the movie, but essentially, it's just a character piece about the love between somebody who's severely mentally ill, although doesn't seem it, and I don't know what the fuck Sam is.
He's
eccentric?
Dyslexic.
He's just a weirdo.
He's an eccentric dyslexic guy.
Okay. And like I said, it's sort of the journey that Benny has to go on to realize that his daughter isn't completely a non-person. She's still very much a person, and she very much needs to be able to find love, and finds that love in the eccentric weirdo that is Sam, who is really a treat to watch in this film. I think I had the most fun in the Johnny Depp scenes, and like I've brought up before on the show, the Home Alone of it is the moment you meet Johnny Depp's character. Right when he gets in there and you start seeing the little weird things that he does, it's unbelievable. Johnny Depp was a star then. He's probably at this point just coming off 21 Jump Street.
No.
21
Jump Street. Okay, yeah. I was thinking of Nightmare on Elm Street. I think Nightmare on Elm Street was his first thing, and then it was 21 Jump Street.
But that was like 7 years before this, and then it would have been 21 Jump Street, and then that show ran for like 4 seasons or something, right?
I think this is an in-between Burton's movie. Like he's
already done.
Pretty sure
Edward Scissorhands.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that.
I don't think he's done Edward Scissorhands yet.
When did that?
Could be wrong.
I want to say that came out like.
I feel like that came out in '92. Actually, now that I think about it, because Batman Returns came out in '92.
Yeah, Scissorhands was what really kind of took him from just being a pretty face to people realizing that he is an actual actor and can do things.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway,
that came out in 1990.
Yeah.
So yeah, he's already a bit of a star. Okay, fair enough. 93 is a weird year for me for movies because I don't remember movies as much as I remember like music, and
Jurassic Park came out a year later and just scrambled everybody's brains.
Just fucking
we're like, Jurassic Park was the 90s, right? The whole 90s was just
Jurassic Park. 90s was just the Jurassic Park movie was in theaters. We all saw it 800 times, and then The Matrix came out, and then it was the year 2000. So,
right.
So, I guess this is the part of the show where we just talk.
I guess we usually open with, when was the first time you saw this? And I mean, the first time I saw it was yesterday, and I had never heard of it before.
I was going to ask you guys. So, Steve, I kind of thought that you might have already seen this one. Jace, man, I figured this might have been a new view for you. I'm curious about, and I'll give you guys my little background on it as well, but I'm curious first what you thought before seeing it when I put it up as an option for us, and then two, like how you guys felt about it going into it. Also, Steve, you mentioned the other night about enjoying movies more when you're watching them with people, I believe is what you were kind of talking about.
Yeah, and I did watch this with a few people because sometimes when I'm watching movies by myself, I get very distracted by my phone or my thoughts.
Did they know what they were getting into? Like, were they like, oh, yeah?
No, none of us had seen it. And we enjoyed it. But, like, so, I mean, to answer your question as to what I thought when you initially pitched it, I was like, I have no idea what this is. I watched the trailer. I rolled my eyes so hard that I thought I was going to have a nosebleed. I was like, oh my God, what are you making us watch? But
you're breaking my heart.
You know, without going into too much detail about how I felt about the movie throughout, at the end of it, I was like, you know what, that was very watchable. It wasn't a difficult watch. It was a little bit predictable, but it was enjoyable, and I liked it. And I don't think it's bad. But I mean, again, we'll get into our discussion about it. I think it has its issues, but I also think it has some good stuff in it that I enjoyed. But I guess, Jason, you can answer that the same question.
So it's funny you should say that, Caylen, because it was actually flipped for me and Steve from what you thought. I had heard of the movie. I forgot which movie it was. And when I was trying to remember what it was, all I could think about was Drop Dead Fred. Drop Dead Fred in this movie used to play all the time and are kind of interchangeable in my memory.
Gotcha.
I remember watching Drop Dead Fred many times. If you guys don't remember that movie, that's the one where the girl has the imaginary friend. And it's the dude from like British TV who's like hilarious. What's his name?
Oh,
Sorry.
Yes, that guy.
He's
hilarious. The British comedian. And it has no. I think it has Phoebe Cates as well, and Rick Mayall, who is on a TV show about two dudes who like live in a flat, and it's brilliant British comedy. It's just like slapstick. It probably came out around the same time as like Mr. Bean. It's more for adults. It's like a sitcom. Anyway, so in my head I was like Benny and Joon. I thought it was going to be Joon. Sounds like a like Korean name. So I thought it was going to be like a like a Joon. When you read that on a piece of paper,
it's spelled.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, like,
Juniper.
The only Junes that I know are like elderly people, and
are elderly white ladies.
Yeah, and they're usually white.
And the summer.
No, I read it, and my first thought was like, oh, we're gonna watch a sweet like martial arts flick. And then I looked at the poster, and then I was like, oh yeah, the fucking 90s had that movie where they tried to tackle mental illness. This is one of the better examples of them executing that. Still not perfect, but I just couldn't stop thinking of Drop Dead Fred because they kind of have the same vibe. But that's basically my history with this movie. It was on TV all the time as a kid. I remember that. Like seeing the poster jogged my memory for all these like 90s movies.
Yeah. One of the weird things was I was talking to my partner just before watching it, and they told me, "Oh, Benny and Joon. I love Benny and Joon. It's one of my favorite movies." And they like went as Sam for Halloween in high school, and like all this. And I was like, "What? I've never heard of this movie. You're going as Sam for Halloween? I guess I should really go into this with an open mind and an open
cool
wine."
pants.
I was about to say. Yeah.
I like all kinds of wine.
With an N?
With an N? Is that what you said?
It's one of the lines from the movie that has always kind of stuck with me.
And then he says 2 N's, and then
2 of them.
he says June. He says with an N, and then she says with an N, one N. And he writes their names down. Yeah, that's pretty good. That's the stuff that I did enjoy throughout the movie. There's lots of very little cute sort of like, I would call them like Joss Whedon-y lines. I know Joss Whedon had nothing to do with this movie, but like one of the reasons that people like him as a writer, even though he's kind of a shitty person in real life, is that he's good at making kitschy, cute dialogue that littered the 90s. Like he very much has sort of the 90s mentality.
It's funny you should say that too. The genre of romantic comedy and like regular straight comedy is called mumblecore. Popularized.
I remember you explaining that to me.
Popularized by the guy and his brother from the League. His name escapes me right now. I'm bad with names. I'm very tired. I thought doing this on a Wednesday would mean that I'd be more active brain-wise, but I digress. The mumblecore idea is that all the conversations in these movies are very organic, and they don't enunciate everything like a giant spectacle, like a movie. You kind of talk like this, and that main character that played Benny, he had that in spades. He was able to all of his talking bits were very organic. Who's that actor? Because he was fucking pretty good, and he looked.
His name was John Mumbles.
John Mumblestein of the Mumbles.
Of the Mumblers. I from the first moment he opened his mouth and he's just kind of like, like, okay, yeah, this is what we're getting into. And then, but that was also, Jason, you said, like, I thought that it was going to be Joon and Benny as like the two love interests, but it's like the brother and sister. And I immediately, when like he's in the mechanic shop and they all are referring to him as Benny, I was like, wait a minute, this guy's Benny? Hold on.
I was just referring to Johnny. I was in my notes. I was just referring to Johnny Depp as Benny, and about halfway, I'm like, wait a sec. I wrote, wait a second, is Benny the brother? And then I was like, Johnny Depp, not Benny. Then goes and does this, blah blah blah. So I had one of those. Like, I was able to pay attention to this movie a lot easier than the general, because the general, like, it's with no dialogue, you have to focus, and I found it really hard to. But this was the perfect movie to just like have on and just like enjoy, and not feel like it didn't feel like a chore.
Mindless slasher movies where it's like, okay, teenagers are kissing. I'm gonna look at my phone for a second.
Like, my introduction to this movie was not when it originally came out, but stumbling across it at HMV at some point.
Loud.
Sorry. Loud?
No, Jason, just when he takes a sip from his can, it's like, I'm like, oh my god.
There's a secret message in those slurps.
Yeah, I'll turn off my shit when I take it.
If you play the recording backwards, you'll hear a message from the devil.
From the devil.
Sorry, go ahead, Caylen.
So back in the day, I used to browse through HMV every once in a while when I had a few extra bucks, and Johnny Depp, had a huge crush on Johnny Depp, and so I'm trying to think what it might have been around Pirates, maybe, that I was like, ooh, give me all of the Johnny Depp movies that I don't know about. I stumbled across this one. I was like, what is this? It is kind of funny that it's titled Benny and Joon, but Sam, Johnny Depp's character, like it's kind of him and Joon, really. Like, it's obviously Benny's involved as well. Johnny Depp gets top billing on movies. How much do actors want top billing or whatever? Through like doing some research on this, I think the three original leads were Depp, Woody Harrelson, and Laura Dern. And Dern dropped out because she didn't get top billing, and she recently won an award or whatever, and felt gypped or something.
So I mean, I guess a great example to modernize it slightly. This is not really modern at all. It's like 10 years ago, but the guy from the original Iron Man who played Brody, what the fuck is his name?
Terrence.
The guy
Terrence.
Terrence Howard, is that his name?
Terrence Howard. He's a fucking weirdo, but I remember this. Go ahead. Sorry.
He had just won an Oscar, and to put it into perspective, he did not return to the MCU because he wanted more money than Robert Downey Jr., even though he was not the main character, and he wanted top billing, and he didn't. They refused to give him either. And he said, "Well, good luck making the movie without me. I'm War Machine." And they're like,
"It doesn't matter. Don Cheadle is so way much better. He's so much better in that role. Like, Rhodey's kind of a funny character, and Terrence Howard's version was so very serious and
I won't say, because I kind of like Terrence Howard's portrayal of that character. I won't say that his performance was bad, but his attitude towards the sequel is what kind of turns me off, being like, all right,
yeah.
What is it about top billing though? Then, what is that?
Because your name is on your name is on the poster. Like, it's gonna be the first name they read, because people read from right to left. So that means your name is gonna be at the top on the
unless you're in Japan.
Okay, well, that's a different story. Maybe in Japan they put it on the other side then.
I'm actually kind of curious about that. Jace, man, never mind. Can you read Japanese?
No.
Because you always have those Japanese posters. But I know for my Japanese comics, they go.
Are you sure you're not drunk?
I am not drunk.
Okay.
My body is still recovering from that last, not only that night, but then on Friday night, I also destroyed myself again for some reason.
It happens, man. It was your birthday week.
But anyway, to put it into, I just try to put it into perspective in the sense that top billing is very important to actors, because it's basically their way of burning their name into your mind as a viewer.
Yeah.
So
their acting is what's gonna burn them into my mind.
Okay, yeah. But at the end of the movie, when the credits come up, or the beginning of the movie when the credits
beginning of the movie is what I wanted to bring up. The opening credits, there's only enough time to have a certain amount of. So we got to see William H. Macy's name. We got to see the other dude.
Two very small scenes. He's not.
Yeah. Julianne Moore was probably in that opening bit. Aidan Quinn, I think, is Benny, and Johnny Depp, and the girl who played Joon, who is somebody I
have it written down.
Mary Stuart Masterson.
That's the one.
Is she Danny Masterson's mom?
That'd be kind of cool.
One of the other things in credits that people are often given that really burns their name into the mind of the audience is if they get an and or a with. So it'll be they'll go through all the names, and then it'll be and
with
Samuel L. Jackson as Nick Fury or something, right?
That should have been what Howard went for. Instead of getting top billing, get the added billing or whatever you want to call it. The tail, because that's also noticeable too, right? It's like you're not
usually
for.
That's usually a prestige thing. That's usually a prestige thing. So when we watched Halloween, it was
introducing
what's
Jamie Lee Curtis.
No, not introducing is when it's they've never been in anything, but an and a with or as. It's usually a prestige actor who's been around for a long time, and they're and I'm here too, and everyone's like, "Whoa!"
Johnny Depp's name actually was introducing in Nightmare on Elm Street. 99% sure. That's real.
Yeah, that's correct. Yeah.
That's something that's interesting to me. What does the studio go? This person's gonna be a star. We're gonna put introducing, and that's gonna make them.
If they're particularly good, they do it a lot with child actors, because I think Dakota Fanning had a couple of introducing when she showed up, because she was just like blew it out of the park immediately.
Because she was a 30-year-old in a 7-year-old's body.
Exactly. She's like, I have 3 degrees and I drink coffee.
It probably helps with like their investment in them as well, like especially if they have the chops, but then to kind of give them that prestige or whatever, so to speak.
Yeah. Anyway, we should probably get back on track.
I gotta say this. I didn't think it was gonna happen, but someone said Benny and Joon. It was at 42 minutes 36 seconds, and it was when Joon was reading back Sam's letter to his mom, something like that.
Me and Brian,
I didn't know I could sound. I
watched it with Brian last night. Brian, who's watching right now.
Hi, Brian.
And I remember, like, did it happen? Did it happen at any point? And we couldn't think of a single moment. And I hadn't turned on my brain to look for it.
I have this. It's one of the things that I keep a close eye and ear on, because like you would hear Benny's name, you would hear Joon's name, but to specifically hear Benny and Joon, or whatever the case, like whenever I'm watching any of these movies, and also like I watched, and with the other ones that we do, like I watched them a few times. If they have commentary, like if I have the actual copies and they have commentary, I'll watch the commentary and learn little tidbits and whatnot. This helped put the 500 Mile song on the charts, as you guys mentioned earlier.
Interesting.
I remember that. I remember
my mom screaming it at the window of her car every time we were driving around because she was so proud to be Scottish.
Because she's very Scottish?
Yeah.
I remember, similarly to, you know how in Groundhog Day, where when he wakes up, he hits the radio, and it's the same song every day. I have like a weird sense memory to literally 1993. I would have been 8 years old, and that song was so popular that every single morning it just so happened to wake me up. So that Groundhog Day actually resonated with me because of this. And when I heard this song play in this movie, I was like, oh, this is why.
Yeah.
This is why this is, it's like, So I Married an Axe Murderer came out around the same time. That's got a similarly poppy song that,
we should do that at some point.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I like that movie.
So I Married an Axe Murderer.
Yeah.
Mike Myers. Oh, dude, if you've never seen that, we'll talk about this off air. But dude, you're gonna love that.
You know what
this
apartment would really need? An extremely oversized poster of the San Francisco Bay Area.
Oh yeah. Whoa.
So good.
So
anyway,
yeah.
Go on. Yeah.
So this hit me real hard when I heard the song at the beginning, and it opens with a cool. Caylen, where does this movie take place? I didn't catch. It seemed like San Francisco or something, but it also seems like the place where.
I want to say Illinois.
Okay.
I want to say, but it was like.
I don't think they say, and we were talking about this last night as well, and I was saying it seemed like what they were trying to accomplish is that this is like sort of like not a dying town, but a small town where not everybody knows each other, but a lot of people do. Like even, their poker game consists of like a mechanic, a guy who works at a mental institution. And,
I have a question about
I don't
the
even know what
poker
the
game.
other guy's job was supposed to be.
I have.
Sure.
Okay, so
the F plot in this movie.
No. But like,
as you know, I know everything about Benny and Joon, so ask me.
Oh, okay. So how the hell is a snorkel equivalent to 2 tickets to a baseball game? Like, I get that they're
maybe you hate baseball like me, and you would rather go snorkeling or just have a snorkel.
It's true.
I don't accept your answer.
It was a good quality snorkel. It wasn't a shitty
dollar
store snorkel.
How about this? Did they show the snorkel? I missed this somehow.
Yeah, she was wearing.
Was it just a regular snorkel? Oh, was it the snorkel that she's wearing when she goes and wanders out into the street?
So it cuts from them betting the snorkel to her wearing the snorkel, and she's got it on while she's Captain Crunch.
I thought she was gonna pour it down the fucking down the snorkel part. Instead, she just drinks a delicious Captain Crunch milkshake in traffic. And then that's where I wrote that this movie both simultaneously somehow takes autism seriously and makes a complete mockery of it.
I don't think that she's supposed to have autism.
I don't think it was.
I think that she's supposed to have a lot of mental trauma from the accident that her.
From the accident, okay.
In. I don't think that she's supposed to be autistic. I don't think that
they didn't want to focus too much on that side of things. Like they didn't want to make the movie about that. So that's why they were kind of what's the word? Not a
they were subverting it
vague.
to the story of Sam and Joon, or Benny and Joon, and they didn't focus too much on what her mental illness was, which is something that I sort of like both appreciated and also wanted to know more about during, because I was like, I'd like to know what she has, but at the same time, the fact that they're not spelling it out for me kind of keeps it safe as a movie that you can show to people without being like, watch this, and they'll be like, well, I didn't like the way they portrayed schizophrenia. And it's like, well, they didn't actually say that she has schizophrenia. You put that in the movie with your own brain.
Okay, well, I did that then, and I was like, either she's got severe Asperger's or she's autistic. But then now that we've talked through it, obviously that she just has PTSD trauma from
the only thing
parents getting killed by a car accident.
That to me implied that there was something wrong with her when she was a kid before the accident is the photograph, because in the photograph, they show it multiple times throughout the movie, but Benny is smiling, even though it looks like a forced smile, but she's just staring at the camera. But that being said, there are plenty.
That was actually them. That was actually them as kids, like those actors. Like they
thought
photoshopped the two of them together, but
I was like, how did they get a little girl to look exactly like her fully grown up?
Which means that actor just had a photo of her like that, which is what I was about to say, is there are plenty of photos of me and my sister where I'm smiling and she's just staring at the camera, and I'm more opposite. It doesn't necessarily mean you have a mental illness. It just
but it's a clue.
You're
it's like
having
a subtle
kind of
nudge.
I didn't put it together that it was PTSD until we started to talk about it. I thought the gimmick of the movie was that she's the special flower and finally finds somebody.
I don't think it is. Like, I think PTSD might be part of it, but she does have like tics and stuff. So I think there could be a little bit more to it than that.
And how this brother can learn to deal with her sister who's got all these problems, and how they can find love with. Okay, what's the deal with Johnny Depp then?
I told you he's an eccentric dyslexic.
He's just a crazy zany guy.
Dyslexia. There's nothing wrong with having dyslexia, okay?
Sounds like you're dyslexic.
Looks like I drew all these pictures behind me. So maybe I'm an eccentric person.
You drew them in a mirror.
He's just a little off. He's just a weirdo. One of those cool, fun, lovable weirdos.
He's just an eccentric guy who has dyslexia. And I'm pretty sure that's all it's supposed to be. And, like, I think he's supposed to be... Like, they imply that he's an idiot, but there's never a moment that infers that he's an idiot outside of people saying he's an idiot. Like, there's never
might not have gotten, like, full schooling or something.
Well, he got kicked out of school for... I don't know if it's just a joke in passing, but he's like, you should do this. You should take this on the road. You should, and he's like, I got kicked out of school for that.
The only time that it's solidified that he might not be smart is when he tries to write the letter, and then he gets Joon to write the letter, and what she does is take his message and just, like, flower up the language, and then he's like, oh, I didn't know I could sound so smart. Or he says something to that point. And
so I was just going to say, as an aside, when I watched this, I was like, this is the most perfectly Caylen movie, because this movie reminds me of you, and I've never seen it. I was like, this makes perfect sense.
Thank you.
And it probably, I think I can pinpoint when you were going through that phase. I think it was the year for Halloween you went as Fear and Loathing, Hunter S. Thompson.
Yeah.
Because I remember you going and being like, I'm going to watch every single Johnny Depp thing. And then you were stuck on, as everybody does, they get stuck on Fear and Loathing for a while. And
I mean, it's good.
Like,
he's hunting those bats.
Yeah, it's like, and then Tobey Maguire gets in the car and he's got a weird hairstyle.
I've never been in a convertible before.
An albino, yeah.
So Johnny Depp's right-handed, and to make it seem like he didn't know how to write, he used his left hand.
Yeah, that was kind of obvious to me, because, like, there's even a point where when he's about to fill out the application, he holds out to write with his right hand, and then he puts it in his left hand. And I was like,
I caught that.
Outtake? Like, it's like he's about to write with the hand that he writes with, but they had established earlier that he writes with his left hand, which is, there are people out there in the world that are like, if you write with your left hand, it means you're more creative. And it's like, I don't know if that's necessarily true. Maybe you think.
Yeah, because he is your other
Brain
side of your
hemisphere.
brain. Yeah, but the brain hemisphere, the brain hemisphere thing, and the points on your tongue that are like different taste buds, like for different kinds of
Oh,
flavor.
the section, the savory, sweet, sour.
Those have been both of those things I think have been mostly disproven by modern science, and it's not as cut and dry as that. So I think the idea that if you're left-handed, you're more creative, just because your creative centers are on the other side of your brain or whatever, it's not. That notion is sort of an antiquated notion nowadays.
Well, yeah, but also this movie was made in 1993,
so that's definitely what they were 100% going for.
He's a creative guy.
Dinosaurs that got green skin and they looked like lizards.
Also, one thing that I was thinking about is like their house is full of paintings, and they're pretty. Most of them are pretty decent abstract paintings, and all I could think the whole time was like, if they just sold these paintings, there are definitely like art collectors out there that would be like, a mentally disturbed person is painting? I'll pay $20,000. And
it would completely rebuild the city's economy.
Yeah, and the only reason that I could think that that wasn't happening is that either Benny didn't think to do that, or Joon refused. Like, no, these are mine.
Well, we glossed over Benny. Benny's character is unique to me in that he is presented as like the straight man,
the straight everyman,
and he's also presented as sort of like every actor in the 90s he's clearly playing like 27 or 28, but every actor looked old back then. Maybe 35 at the oldest.
Think he's supposed to be in his 30s, but like I'm pretty sure that he was closer to 40, right? Like,
but what I'm saying is they present him as this like slacker. He's got really low self-esteem. He thinks that he's a little bit emotionally immature because he's stuck on the fact that he has to take care of his daughter. So then when he has this relationship with Julianne Moore's character, sister, whatever.
There's a huge difference.
I know.
Sorry, I also disagree with what you're saying, but continue. Go.
You didn't get that from when he's like, I can't take care of her anymore. I gotta put her in a home.
I don't think that he is stunted or immature. I think that he feels such an overwhelming sense of
like obligation,
having to like an obligation to take care of her, that he cannot move on with his life. Like that's the issue in the movie.
I get that, but they also present him at the beginning as somebody who needs to be changed by this relationship between Sam and Joon so he can move on. So I feel like the biggest growth in this movie, ironically, is the titular Benny, because Joon is fine. Like Joon her character never really changes.
Yeah.
And Sam's character, he only just grows into being able to interact with other humans. Yeah. But Benny goes from, like, we see Benny actually go from being like, I can't have relationships with people. My sister is completely running my life, but I feel like I can't do that. I'm not mentally, I can't do it anymore almost, but I've never really grown up beyond just taking care of her. Well, and by the end of it, he's like cool with them, Sam and Joon having a romantic relationship. He's patched things up with Julianne Moore. I really liked their little, C-plot relationship. I thought that was really interesting. And I just wanted to bring up, I feel like there's so much focus on Sam and Joon because they're such eccentric characters that I just really wanted to like put a spotlight on Benny because, he's in the title and he has the most character progression, in my opinion.
That's very good point.
And he's also just as much of a weirdo as they would be conceived, even though they like are more outwardly projecting it as, kooky characters. One is like hucking things at people and wearing snorkels on the highway. The other one is, kicking his hat around in a park.
A literal clown.
But when Benny goes to Julianne Moore's apartment for 2 seconds, he becomes the weirdest person I've ever seen.
So awkward.
He's like walking around, like looking in every room, and like, and he's like, "Wow, look at this place. What is this, a balcony?" And you're like, "Fuck, Benny. Dude, you just came in here. You're just going through like underwear drawers and stuff. Like, wow, you sure got a lot of underwear in here."
What is that? What was that line from? She's got to be referencing something when she says that. Sit down, son. You're making me nervous.
Oh man.
I think it was just doing 1950s movie.
Is Arbuckle
voice.
Abbott and Arbuckle?
Like,
is that a thing?
I used to
Abbott
say
and
that to my
Costello?
friends when I was in high school. Like if they were standing up talking to me,
You're making me nervous.
You're making me nervous. I'm like,
it's from something.
Actually,
so
I don't know.
Okay, so
I've said it in my own real life.
To tie this in with last week's movie, so I've heard Buster Keaton's name before, but then seeing him reading the book and then also just that cover on that book, I'm like, okay, what's this? That's what got me down the rabbit hole for Buster Keaton, and found a new love with that. The other thing, though, that one of my favorite scenes is the diner scene when he's doing the little dance with the dinner roll, and then he does the little mix and match with the dishes, the plates. The dinner roll thing, though.
That's in those same montages we see for famous movies. I've seen that before. I've seen that in those Oscar. When you watch the Oscars and they show a montage of famous movie scenes.
I mean, it's great when the Simpsons riff it.
Well, I was going to say, I first saw it on Simpsons.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I saw this. I'm like, oh, they got it from this. But really, it goes back to Chaplin.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Wait, so, okay. Yeah, no, yes, you are correct. I said Chaplin, but it may be because you were talking and it didn't get picked up. But yes, it is.
There's no, so like most of Sam's character or whatever, a lot of it's Buster Keaton. But he did a lot of research.
He's a mixture of a ton of different,
for sure.
And he's not just silent era too. He's beyond it, and the reason he gets hired at that movie store is he's so scared because he can't fill out the application because his handwriting is shit and he doesn't know how to spell his own name or whatever. But he definitely got the job because he knew so much about movies, right?
He just went in there and was like,
listen, I know
just saying all kinds of movie shit. Yeah. And I liked that little ripple, and I really thought that that store had a really unique look to it, and I really enjoyed that shot of him walking in because it looked very There were a lot of scenes in this movie.
Out front and then went
yeah.
Yeah.
There were a lot of scenes in this movie that looked really cinematic. That's why I wanted to know what town it was, and that's why I pegged it as a San Francisco, smaller area San Francisco, or something like Portland, Oregon, or like Seattle.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Had that look, old rustic, evergreen forest, but probably near the Pacific Ocean is kind of what the whole.
So the reason that I pegged it as it's interesting that we're considering it different places. I kind of like the idea of that we all kind of are like, this is a different place than what you think it is. The stunted buildings, his buddy that he goes to his house, whose wife never talks. What's up with that? Why even have that character? She's just leaning on him all the time and feeding him food and she doesn't have a single line of dialogue. Anyway, but when they're sitting on their front porch, they're right across the street from what looks like a horribly dilapidated warehouse. It's just there's broken down cars and concrete crumbling off of it. And this seems like a town that was probably once an industriously thriving town, and now it's just people who are mechanics and diner waitresses and everybody else works at the hospital, I guess.
Kind of remind me of the town from Friday the 13th also, but a little bit bigger.
A bigger version of it, yeah. My initial thought in the opening scene was, a train. I guess I know why Caylen picked this, because there's a train in this and there's a train in that.
I think Caylen's telling us a story during this birthday month, and I'm getting it so far.
I hope the next movie we watch starts with 500 miles, or there's somebody escaping from an insane asylum, or somebody's furiously stabbing at a canvas. But I did like that opening sequence a lot because it's showing a train. It's showing him on the train reading the Buster Keaton book, even though apparently he can't read very well. So it's weird that he's looking at a book that he can't read.
It's probably mostly pictures.
It's probably him just looking at images, yeah.
Yeah, I did look up that book, and it is mostly pictures. And I think the sections of it where it is writing, I'm pretty sure it's a French book.
Right. Well, you know what they say, a picture's worth 1,000 words, so it's probably a 50,000 page book in terms of.
A picture's worth 1,000 books.
And I would walk 500 miles to get it.
But I did like that it was cutting in between the train and Joon, like feverishly making this painting, and it like I do acrylic painting sometimes, and all I kept thinking was like, you're wasting so much paint. How much money do you have? But I liked the chaos of her painting, kind of like juxtaposed to the order of the train. Like a train is like, when you look at a train, it's like, stops are on time. Everything means, you got to be tight on schedule because that's the way things work. It's all about order. It was like order and then her chaotic sort of like painting. And then you see this guy on the train who's like later in the film introduced as like a secondary flame of chaos. It was good. It was like foreshadowing without me realizing it, and then I thought about it later, and I was like, you know what, this movie is maybe deeper than I thought, or maybe no one was thinking about that when they made it, which is probably me. They just wanted to show how he got to this town.
I think that it was at the time would have been just a new take on the romantic comedy. When you think romantic comedy from the early 90s, you think of something like Cocktail.
I mean, I don't, but sure.
Well, what's an early 90s romantic comedy?
I think that the romantic comedy really came into its own in the mid to late 90s.
No, it's just a romance movie.
There were lots of you could even consider True Lies to be a romantic comedy.
And So I Married an Axe Murderer came out around this time too. So that's a romantic comedy horror.
I was trying to get at last week when we were talking about The General and how early in cinema there weren't really genres. It was like they just made either something that was scary, something that was exciting, or something that was a musical. And usually the musical would encompass all those other things. And they're like, it's a show, everyone, welcome to the show. Like that was what the whole deal was. And then genres kind of split off after that. And then genres kept splitting into subgenres, and they're still happening to this day.
Stunt comedies.
Yes, that was your I think I figured out what we're doing.
Eureka!
Comedy.
Well, it actually does, and I'll talk about it on the next episode because it does. There is a little tie-in with that as well. But I really want to make grilled cheese with an iron, but I'm worried that I can't use my iron on clothing after.
Don't make grilled cheese with an iron.
Don't.
And if you're going to do it, still use a frying pan because I bet that those grilled cheese sandwiches taste awful.
What do you mean? How could it taste awful? It's cheese and bread and butter.
On fabric. You're making it on fabric, so it's gonna suck in the.
Caylen, you're gonna light your fucking house on fire. Don't do it.
Also, that you'll probably burn your house down if you try it. If you want to do it,
the house was supposed to burn down at the end.
Me and Brian were watching this, and when she burns that photograph, there's a tea towel in the sink that's leading to a drape, and I'm like, Brian is like, that tea towel is going to lit off that, and then it's going to go up there, and the whole house is going to burn. And we were both sitting there in anticipation, waiting, and the house never burnt down. But
then there's also that little tissue that she set on fire, too. She's a pyro.
I don't think that she's a pyro. I think that she does it in defiance. She doesn't do it because she likes burning things. She does it as a reaction to other people disappointing her or upsetting her in a way that she's like, I'm going to burn this to show that person. And that's like her response to it, which, I can relate, man. Fuck you.
I get that.
Don't cross me or I'll burn something.
So I do want to give you guys the 15-minute warning.
Sounds good.
Okay. I mean, I haven't gone to any of my notes yet, really. So.
Did you make a note about the two fish, both Stevens?
Yes, I did. And
PHNV?
Yes, that was
Steven?
the thing. So when I used to work in a warehouse, and there were 7 Stevens that worked there at the same time with me on the same shift, and it was a night shift, so we worked from 9 p.m. till 5 a.m. And we started making these little niche groups of the V's and the PHs, and we would talk shit about the V's and the PHs. And then we convinced everybody else that worked there, because a lot of them are dumb or super sleep deprived, and we convinced them, all of us,
everything's
all the
funny.
Stevens, all the Stevens, we convince them that there's a secret war that happens every day on planet Earth between people who have a PH and people who have a V in their name. And so as soon as she was like, one has a V and one has a PH, I was like, no, you can't put them in the same bowl. They'll kill each other. I said that out loud, and I realized that, like, oh, wait, I'm the only one that understands that joke. But, yeah, those fish would kill each other. But, yeah, I wrote that down, so I'm glad we got to that eventually. Kid Benny, good casting, like the car accident Benny. I was like, holy shit, that kid looks so much like the actor who is playing Benny now. I would be unsurprised if they were related in some capacity.
Because he has a weird shaped head?
He is a pretty weird looking guy. Nose, nothing against him.
Like, they had wider set eyes, and like their face kind of like comes down.
His chin kind of comes like down like this and then out.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Irish.
Yeah, you know, like that again. The Steven and Steven thing is another one of those lines that I'm like, oh, that's cute. That's a funny, cute thing to have. But again, the movie is like full of those little weird, cute moments. The movie within a movie where Benny first introduces himself to Julianne Moore's character, and he like fully quotes a scene of a movie that clearly did not spring her Hollywood career into
the
any
mutilator.
Action. Yeah, but he knows like every line, and then like when they're watching the movie, he's like literally like saying every line to the point that Benny's like, "Hey, shut up! I'm trying to watch this shitty movie."
I was like, is this Carrie? But I was like, why is she also in this movie?
Yeah. It's like a weird anomaly because it's not an amazing movie, and like I can't imagine that anybody who was a part of this thought it was going to be like an Oscar-worthy movie, but you've got so many people in this movie.
Yeah, it feels special. Like you have
that's a
William H. Macy and what's his face? What the fuck is the guy's name?
The guy,
the other mechanic guy. Yeah. I can't remember his name either. He's in lots of stuff though. He was a 90s actor. He was a character actor who was in like he was never the.
I think he was in The Producers. I think he was in Funny Bone. No.
It's fucking what's his face? Oliver Platt. It's fucking Oliver Platt. They have bit parts, and they would both they would both go on to become amazing actors. William H. Macy, single-handed, like he was in a lot of good movies before he was on Shameless, but his portrayal of Frank is one of my favorite television piece of shit curmudgeons possibly of all time.
Well, I mean,
he's so fucking good.
We can all agree about one thing, is that William H. Macy can shovel well. He can shovel very well.
He's the shoveler.
Mystery Man.
Yeah.
But also, he was in Fargo, which is one of the best movies ever made.
I just saw that for the first time the other day.
Amazing.
Oh, really? That's
yeah.
So good.
Blew my mind. I'm like, whoa, what is this? A buddy of mine told me about it, but I didn't commit to it, and then
I'll just fax those over to you. I don't fax them. I mean, I'll email them or whatever. Yeah.
He kills it in Magnolia as well, and Boogie Nights, of course. But it's funny you say it's not an amazing movie, but whenever people ask me what's your favorite movie, for some reason, this one is always kind of comes to mind.
Sorry, and when I say it's not an amazing movie, what I mean to say is that it is a good movie that I can definitely see a lot of people like having this hold a special place in their heart, like being like. I
told my wife that this movie I would love. Like, no, she was working while I was still watching it, but she was like, "How was it?" She watched the trailer and was like, "What is this movie?" And I was like, I remember I told you guys basically the same thing that I told her. I told her what I told you guys. And basically, like, if I was 16 and I saw this movie, or if I was like 14 and I saw this movie similarly to when Breakfast Club changed my life, I think this movie would have resonated with me if I would have seen it in like 1998.
Yeah.
If I was in junior high.
Though, when you said it's special, I think
it's a very special film.
Yeah. So, and I think like, so what I was saying is like, you know, when people, when they're sick, they have a movie they put on. They're like, I always put this movie on when I'm sick because it makes me feel good. Like, it seems like one of those movies, and I feel like a lot of people probably have that. Yeah, it's like their comfort movie. And, you know, that is the sign of a good movie. And when I say it's not an amazing movie, I just mean like, it's not something that like is in the zeitgeist of every, like, you're not going to walk down the street and be like, name somebody from Benny and Joon. And they're going to be like, what?
It definitely, it's a movie that came and went. It feels very dated. It does feel like I'm watching a movie from, you know, the early 90s. But it did have a lot of really endearing stuff. And talking about it actually did that thing that this podcast always does for a lot of movies that I didn't like sitting through.
All along.
I knew it. So we do have 10 minutes left. I would like to, if you guys have any notes you want to bring up, let's kind of get through that, and then let's talk about our final thoughts, and let's get ready for Caylen's next week adventure.
The reason that Sam stays with them is because they lose a poker game. That's kind of fucked up. Like, what the hell? You're just pawning a human.
You can't bet people.
I do like that style of poker game, though. Like IOUs or like little, you know, objects around the house or whatever. Like, I think we should have a poker night like that sometime.
I've never seen that in something before, and I don't know like if it's been done before or after, but it was intriguing to me because it took me a minute to realize what they were doing. I was like, what?
Yeah.
Are they
but I still feel some of those
money?
bets did not equate. Like, they're like, I don't want to use soap out of rope.
Hey, it's all about perspective, Caylen. It's about perspective. Just like this movie.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So did you guys have anything else you wanted to bring up before we...
Yeah, there's one thing I wanted to bring up. There's a scene where they're outside the door to get into the wing of the hospital that they're not allowed to go in. And a guy comes out using crutches, and the guy using the crutches does not know how to use crutches. I wrote, this guy doesn't know how to use crutches, and he's using crutches. And he's like walking like a fucking weird transformer, like one of those spaceships from episode 1. Like, he's using them like they're additional legs instead of just like using them normally. He's like walking with them.
I did also notice that the climax of this movie seems to be when he swings across her window.
I did notice is that, like, when they first show her, it's like nighttime, and I was like, the window looks weird. And then when it was daytime, I'm like, the window still looks weird. And then I was like, what are they in, like an 80-story mental facility? Because it's just clouds and sky. And then I realized, like, oh, they're doing like a storybook thing, because like you would be able to see trees and grass and road and city.
Yeah. So our viewers, basically, what happens is they hatch a plan. So simultaneously, the brother Benny can go in and talk to her and just be like, "What the fuck is going on with you?" But then also, so Johnny Depp, so Sam can make his way up and do a grand gesture. So we do both of these things happen sort of simultaneously, and it's funny. I really like the way that he tried to cause a diversion, but just gets grabbed immediately.
Mommy.
Yeah, mommy. but then everything was accomplished, and this movie didn't have a lot of that thing that people hate. I find I don't mind it, but that style of comedy where everything's going wrong all the time. Everything was wrapped up in kind of a neat bow by the end of the film, and I really appreciated that.
Errors.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's also like a lot of small details in this movie that I found interesting. Like just when they're walking through the house, they show a lot of the house, which I liked. And almost every single room has paint on the walls, paint on the windows, canvases leaned up against walls, and it just like really shows you the character of Joon, because you don't really learn a lot about Joon in this movie, other than that she has severe mental illness and she does weird things. That's kind of like her character the whole time, and then it's relying.
I need my next girlfriend to be like Joon.
Okay, well, you're a regular Sam, Caylen. I've always said that, so you'll probably find her.
Just look for a girl with severe PTSD. They should make a dating app for people who lost their parents in a horrible fire or a car crash.
Yeah. Another like
sorry.
Another weird small detail that I liked is like he's a mechanic, and the entire movie up until a certain point has like dusty ass fingernails. Which, if you've ever met a mechanic in real life, they always have nasty, greasy hands, and it's because it just doesn't come off. And like she's cleaning. Remember when she's cleaning his fingers and stuff? Like up into that point,
you have
like,
cuticles.
everybody is so gross because like she's always got paint on her hands and he's always got grease on her hands, and there's probably some sort of like symbolism there that I wasn't.
Well, it's very real. That's a very real feeling.
And it just felt real, and that was nice. But like at the same time, I'm like, is there something beyond this that I'm not seeing? And is it like maybe at the end of the movie, both of them have clean hands, and it's like them sort of like scrubbing their hands of each other's, like, because she has a mental illness and he also technically has mental illness as well. He's not able to like let go and let her become a person.
Yeah.
Anyway, there's weird things that like make you think the more you think about it, and you're like, I don't know, like this movie is actually way deeper than you think, but at the same time, it's not difficult to watch. Where you're not like, you're just like, oh yeah, dirty hands. That probably.
I like how pleased with yourself you are, Caylen, that we both, once again, we were both like, fuck, we gotta watch this movie, and then we both enjoyed it. You don't remember last week, but
we also liked The General, too.
We had a very spirited conversation. Yeah, we had a spirited conversation about that movie while you were just like,
when you would do things like, hey, guys, hold on, before you talk about that. What were we talking about again?
Is this when's the podcast start? So I'm gonna take us home here.
Yeah. Take us home, Jay.
This we had more to talk about. This went by really fast, as it usually does, but we had a lot more to talk about for this movie than I thought we would. Even watching it, I was like, I don't know if there's like a lot to talk about here, but there's a lot of nuance. And
we all just talked about different things, which was good. Like we all came out of this with a different sort of perspective, which is nice.
So I'll give my final thoughts first, and I just wanted to say that Caylen, once again, thank you. Happy birthday month. It's refreshing to watch a movie you don't know anything about and then enjoy it, especially if you think you're going to think that it's like. I knew that you wouldn't pick a movie that like is bad, but I definitely went into it going, what am I getting myself into with this? But I came out on the other side feeling like I learned a little bit, maybe. Like, I feel like good that I watched. It's almost an art film. It's almost like art. It's got like a real art slant to it.
Almost makes you want to say, hey, did you see this one?
And that's been the show tonight. Good night. But I'm going to give it a 3.5. Honestly, I would recommend this movie to people, especially people who like movies from the early '90s, like who like that era of film, because it just felt like I should have seen this. It felt like I should have already seen this movie years ago, and it felt like one of those movies that, much like the horror series we did, it should be one of those movies that should already be in one of those. Like, hey, did you see this one? Like, unironically,
like a retrospective online or something.
Yeah, like I don't see a lot of people. I'd like to hear Red Letter Media talk about this movie because they rip it to shreds. They probably watch it on Best of the Worst, but I would like to still hear what Mike has to say about Johnny Depp's performance in this, just because there's a lot to talk about. So yeah, I'm gonna give it 3.5 out of 5 as my final rating. And once again, Caylen, thank you, because I'm excited for whatever the fuck is going to happen next week. Steve, why don't you go next? Since we'll give Caylen the final thought probably for his whole month.
Sure. Caylen, good pick. I had never heard of this movie until you forced us to watch it against our own will. And I was like, oh my God, what is this? Is this man insane?
Yes.
Have I decided to befriend an insane person?
The good kind of insane, though.
Yeah. You're like a Joon. The insane person we all love. But I did enjoy this movie, and like I connected on a bunch of different levels with this movie in a way that I wasn't expecting. From the trailer alone, I didn't really fully understand what it was going to be about. I thought it was just going to be Johnny Depp is introduced into this like I don't know, like these two people's lives, and he's going to cause havoc. And I think the end of the tagline at the end of it was like a romance on the cusp of sanity, and I'm like, that's maybe problematic. Yikes.
My wife was like, she watched the trailer and she was like, what the fuck was that trailer? Trailers were so different back then.
Yeah, they told you everything except the stuff that you need to know about what the hell you're about to watch.
It's a different movie in the trailer, I'll tell you that much.
One thing that I thought about during this movie was that if you changed the musical tone of everything, Sam would seem like a real Chip Douglas from the Cable Guy. Where you're like, oh my god, he's like Chip Douglas. But it's charming. I enjoyed all of the little bits, like the part where she says, "You're out of your tree," and he's like, "It's not my tree," and you're like, "Oh, out of your tree." You know, that means you're insane. And it's like, oh, okay, like little things like that where you're like, I even liked like the mailbox noise. He checks it, I think, 3 times in the movie, and that mailbox noise is the same exact mailbox noise every time. And I know this because I've used that mailbox noise in stuff that I've done, and I'm like, yeah, that's the standard mailbox noise. And it adds like a weird level of charm for me. I know that's not going to connect with a lot of other people, but for me, love the mailbox noise. But the thing that I love the most about it is that it's not an overly complicated story. There are some unreasonable character reactions throughout, especially from Benny and Julianne Moore's characters, where they're trying to figure something out while Benny and Joon have already figured it out. Like, Benny and Joon know what they want, and it's these other 2 fucking idiots who are supposedly sane who don't know what they're supposed to do in life.
You mean Sam and Joon?
Sorry, Sam and Joon know what they want. Benny and Julianne Moore's character, I think her name's Ruth.
Ruthie? Pretty sure it's Ruthie.
Ruthie, yeah. They're the ones that are acting insane, and Sam and Joon are the ones that are acting completely upon like platonic romance, and like what their hearts want is this, and these 2 they want that as well, but because they're so fucking stupid and acting like idiots, they can't see it. And I really, really like at the end that he goes and he gives some roses to Ruth, and it's implied that they're going to figure it out. But then instead of going in and being like, hey, congratulations, guys, he just leaves them at the door and then closes the door while she's making the grilled cheese sandwiches. And it zooms out, and like she's got like all these gifts around her. Like she's got like a new easel with a bow on it, and like a new blender with a bow on it, and like
housewarmings.
Yeah, and you're just like, you know what? They're gonna be okay. And at the end of the movie, like you know that they're gonna be okay, but then you think back to the beginning of the movie, and all it was is that they just needed to find one another, and it's like that is like a successful romance. Is that if at the end of the movie, if you believe in these 2 people, that's a successful romance. And I'm not a huge fan of romances being the full frontal drive of a movie. I think it's good to sprinkle in, but in this movie in particular, there are 2 romances going on, and one of them is rocky and horrible, and one of them is just like it's meant to be from the moment they meet each other. And it's not what it's like subverted, where you're like, these 2 people are the ones that are going to be all over the place, and these 2 are the ones that are supposed to figure out their lives. Anyway, I'll keep talking if I don't stop myself, so I'm going to stop myself.
Do you want us to stop you from time to time? Just asking for future reference.
I know that I go on a little bit too hard sometimes. Sorry.
Hey, you stuff those stories in a sack.
Okay, I will. I think that this movie is charming. I think it's easy to watch, which is really good. And I think that it has a lot of good quotable stuff going on in there. And then it also has a lot of recognizable faces that if you like movies in general, you'll watch this and be like, hey, it's this guy. Hey, it's that guy. Oh, it's this guy. Even if you don't know their names, you're going to be like, I recognize all these people from things that I already like. Which brings it up a little bit for me. So I think I'm going to, in the year 2001, give it a 3.8 for being a comfortable movie. Like, it's very comfortable. You don't feel intimidated by it in any way. And you're just kind of like, Even though I was like expecting to not like it, I walked out of there being like, you know what? I feel at ease. Very good job, movie. You entertained me.
All right, Caylen, why don't you hit us with your final thoughts?
Well, I got to say that I'm glad and almost blushing a little bit, but very glad and excited that you guys enjoyed it. And that has been kind of my like want out of like kind of doing these things is not only like us talking about stuff that we like, you know, to watch, but also introducing each other to things that maybe we haven't seen yet, and then also our viewers out there.
Our viewer out there.
Yeah. But you guys hit a lot of the words that I would use. Like it is a special movie. It is there's a whimsical ness to it. There's a simplicity without it being too simple. There's different kind of stories going on, so that you're not kind of like, it's like, oh, like you're not just kind of watching the same thing over. Like you're kind of bouncing around between different people's lives and how they interact with the other people within the narrative. I mentioned earlier that whenever people ask me what's my favorite movie, for whatever reason, this one always comes to mind. Not that it's a grandiose movie, but it's all of the things that we've said and then some. And it doesn't really drag on anywhere. Like, it doesn't really miss a beat. It doesn't really miss any shots or anything like that. It's a pretty solid movie all in all, and one that I think everyone should at least watch once, and hopefully, one, have a laugh, two, maybe learn something about themselves, three, maybe be a little more open and understanding to just the differences of each other. That being said, not that these numbers ever really mean that much, but I want to say
they really don't.
Yeah. We should just start saying I recommend or I don't recommend.
Maybe we should come up with something that's like a MacGuffin or whatever.
What about like a 1 million point system where you give it between 1 and 1 million?
I'm gonna say 4.5.
Oh wow! All right.
I'm gonna say 4.5.
I mean, he did say it's one of his faves, so we can't.
Well, there it is, folks. That's high praise for this movie. So that is I think after the number rating, we can just give it a recommend across the board. And I have to ask a question that's been on all our minds this whole time. This whole night we've been sitting here wondering, and inside our mind's eye, there's a small little inkling, a alpha and omega, if you will, of wanting to know a particular answer to a particular question you've been wondering and answering on your own, probably, but maybe not. Maybe you're just coming up with the question now inside of your head. And that question is this question, the question that's been on all of our minds. And that is, hey, did you see this one?
Oh my God. I was coming up with so many other questions. But, you know what? I'm going to ask the same thing. Hey, did you see this one?
Hey, did you see this one?
I did. I saw it.
And of course, as always, for Caylen, Steve, I'm Jason.
For Steven and Jason, I'm me.
For Jason, for Caylen, I am Steven. And let me just say, what a good movie to not bury any particular mental illness. Good job, movie.
Good job for us also.
Gentlemen, always a pleasure.
Have a great night, and thank you for watching. Bye.